Oh, hello, commercial streams. We're getting warmed up for Linux Unplugged. It's a big one, of course. We wouldn't have any other way.
You told me it was a small show.
That's what I had to do to get you here.
Yeah, true.
You know? But now we're here. We're doing a big one. We're just getting warmed up. And just before we started up the commercial streams, Brent asked, so what is the, now that I'm running Nix and I'm all in, what do I got to do to upgrade this thing?
Yeah, I feel like that maybe should have been a question before I installed it and dedicated to running it permanently, but well, we're here now. So I've noticed at the end of the config for NixOS, there's a little number that says like, hey, you're on this version. And given that's a configuration file, I'm sure you change that in the process. But is there anything else you need to do? Like, is it a big deal, like moving from Ubuntu to another version, or like what's going on?
Kind of funny is you don't really need to change that.
No.
Oh, really?
You would think, right? You would think.
So that's kind of used. It's not. I don't know how much it's used, but for stateful stuff. So like if you install the database from one release, and then on the next release it was like a new major version or something that needed some changes or something to happen, that kind of helps you track that. It depends for updates if you're using flakes or channels, but that's your method.
Yeah, so you know how you have like the channel update command? Mm-hmm. So you got like a way, I guess, I don't know if this is what the Nix terminology is, but you're like subscribed to a version channel. And
which could be unstable or whatever the current release is.
Yeah, or the current release. And you just can update the channel that you're subscribed to. They got like commands on their wiki. And then when you do that, you could, like, one step is you could just channel subscribe to the next Nix, which is going to be
2311.
2311, right? Yeah, 2311. And then there might be another step, because I've only done this like once or twice, but it's like a two-step process essentially, and then you do a rebuild.
That just sounds like an everyday thing.
Yeah, it's really not bad.
Yeah.
Now, it does that differ significantly if you flaked out your box?
No, I mean, if you have a flake, you just have an input that's pointing to the version of Nix packages you're following. So that could be unstable, or it could be 2305.
So you just update that.
Then you just switch that. Then you update then you do a flake update, so it updates your pins. And then when you do a rebuild, it'll use that. Yeah.
There you go. So you guys remember that I was attempting to play around with GNOME 45, and I wanted to do the NixOS rebuild into a VM. Mm-hmm. So essentially, it takes your box, adds in GNOME 45, and outputs a VM that you can fire up. And through this, I ended up like re-architecting my storage layout on my workstation.
Ooh.
Way better. And now that I got it all laid out, I was like, well, let's reconnect to that old Steam library, because I've got like 500 gigs of Steam games on this RAID 0 Scary RAID. Steam reconnects, detects them all. It's like,
that does seem the ideal. Scary RAID 4 games.
Yeah.
Seems perfect.
And the great part is like, I've only had to download those games once. And then over the years,
systems away, whatever.
Right, yeah. I just reload Steam, reconnect it to that folder, and then at most I have updates. Boy, did I have updates! So many updates, because it's been a long time. So for like the last 3 nights, I was just churning away, because I've been staying at the studio. I was just churning away Steam updates, churning. Left the machine running 24/7, churn. I go up there this morning, sit down to copy around our live stream image, and I go to click on the Scary RAID folder. And I get devices not mounted there. Now, I only had like 5 minutes, so I didn't even like check any error logs or anything. But in that 5 minutes, I managed to forget, and because I was really in a rush, and then try it again, and then at a different path, and also get like the Scary RAID device is not available. I wouldn't lose anything because it's all just like ephemeral stuff.
Even more updates.
But it's like, and I was just like, this is awesome. Years of Steam downloads. Like, basically, a big portion of my Steam library just sitting on my disk. Yep. It's so cool, right?
Can you download my whole library while you go to El Salvador and just come back?
Right? And those discs, they're so old. They're from like...
Get a couple more Bitcoin nodes syncing too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The discs that are in that are from like... video editing days. That's why there's a RAID 0.
Yeah, for scratch discs or whatever.
Yeah, so when we were doing... And it was probably before Rikai took over, when I was doing the video editing. That's when those...
It's a whole other era.
Yeah, they're pretty old.
3 years? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think you can rescue it, or are you even going to bother?
No, probably not. I mean, they're all the same age. So they're all going to be going, so I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'd probably figure out which one's dead. I could just rebuild it with slightly smaller, because I don't really need all the space. Or, ideally, one day replace it with like a bunch of SSDs that are on sale or something. make it really fast. That's what I want it for. Just a lot of fast dumb storage. Like, hey, I'm going to make a VM all of a sudden and I need like 30 gigs. Do it there, you know?
How much RAM do you have?
It's either, I think it's 64 in that machine.
Yeah, well, if you're not using it for other stuff, you always have a RAM disk.
Yeah. So what you're saying is buy more RAM.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's, you know what, Wes?
I mean, if it is really disposable, and for VMs, it's pretty great.
Yeah, the only thing that I really want to do, of course, we talked about this before, it's like, thing is, I like having it persist when I turn off the machine. Mm-hmm. You'd have to have the disk space.
You could copy it.
Yeah, but you'd have to, I guess, like the thing, maybe you copy it to a server, right?
Sure.
Assuming the network's up to speed, you sync it off to a server.
And reload it back up?
Yeah.
And this is how we get ourselves in trouble doing crazy things, is these kind of streams of thinking. Right?
Yeah, this is it right here. I got to start the title bots. Have I done that yet?
No.
Oh, we got to get the title bot going.
Yeah, Slack in there. I think GameBot is, champing at the bit, ready to go.
So if you're watching on the commercial streams and you want to get in our chat room, which I would really appreciate, you just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/matrix. We got the deets there. You're going to need like Element, or you could use the web client. They have a Element web version too that works pretty well. And then you can bang suggest away. Do. What do you think of that pre-show? I don't love it.
Yeah,
It's thick.
I think that's my main concern.
It's thick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's thick. Got anything else? It's thick. So thick. Here, I'll tell you. I'll read it to the pre-shows guys here, so they get it right. They know what's up. Turns out there's a gnarly bug in Android 14. It was initially reported as just affecting the Pixel 6, but it may actually affect all the devices that run Android 14, which is a small handful. But users that are taking advantage of multiple profiles on Android are reporting that their data partition is having all kinds of bizarre issues. They're seeing boot loops. They see kinds of like...
I get messages like,
no local storage.
Failed to open directory. Structure needs cleaning.
Yeah, and you can't save pictures. You can't save anything. So you're trying to take a screenshot of the problem. You can't save the screenshot. And the other thing that's been, of course, a little unfortunate about this whole thing is the Google response has kind of been lackadaisical until just recently.
Boo.
So yeah, I guess what a weird problem. What a weird problem. A nasty storage bug that seems to be affecting users of the multiple profile feature. It's about awful because you could just have regular old folk who are totally unaware.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I've ever really... I mean, I've tried the multiple profile thing. I don't know if I've ever actually used it in a real situation.
Yeah.
I tried to use it once.
For work and personal, or what?
No, for a friend of mine. I let him borrow a tablet, and he just needed something to get online while I was working on his computer. And so I set him up a profile for it. Didn't give him admin rights, so I couldn't install nothing stupid. Worked fine for that, but this was 2013, 2014, 2013-ish.
I could see also maybe using it for kids. Like each kid could have their own profile. Or if you have a tablet that you share with the kids, you could have your own profile. Mm-hmm. But I've never really taken advantage of it. Got to be honest with you. I don't think we have a pre-show.
No.
Because that was our pre-show and I don't like it. See, it just wasn't that good. It's fine.
Android related, I got Lineage on that Shield.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've been fighting Nextcloud like a hero. And got Nginx working on Nix, so...
Yeah, actually not too sure about that anymore.
Nextcloud or Nginx?
The Nginx part, because now nothing will load.
Ah, you're right on track.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Nginx experience. Dang, I hate not having a pre-show. I really tried. But then I sat here and looked at it. I don't like it.
That happens. The thing about a pre-show is it's really got to be a good fit. It's sort of the first date of the show.
I mean, Brent's moose story is pretty good.
He didn't get a moose.
Well, I mean, the one that, nearly killed his brother, right? Got exaggerated.
Oh, right. That's true. Oh, man, they put my welcome video on the LinuxFest.
To LinuxFest, the mini fest. Really glad.
Hey, that's you.
Yeah, with my old hair.
Yeah, you're looking sharp today.
Yeah, I got them all cut, so aerodynamic now. You know.
I was just telling the lady she'd never heard of the Floby. You remember the Floby?
Oh yeah, I remember the Floby. Oh, I gotta fix these shots. Yeah, I feel like I would actually be a decent candidate.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
For the Floby.
Yeah, you're busy.
Yeah.
You kind of have great hair already, so you don't need to do that. You don't need a fancy cut.
I hate going to get my hair cut.
Yeah.
Hate that. So, if I could just cut that out. You know, Brent cuts his own hair.
Okay. Should we get him a Floby then?
He probably, you know what?
He might have one.
Yeah, maybe he's tried it. Yeah, he'll even do it in the hotel room. He's that guy. So, like, you know, they got to come clean all that up.
He's got time while he's waiting for his clothes to hang dry.
We were doing something.
Oh, he's gone. I see what's happening.
We were doing something.
I assumed he was going to chime in here.
And he's like, oh, sorry, I was just cutting my hair. I'm like, what? You're in a hotel room. Yeah, no, I cut my hair.
Okay, hold on. The Floby, I remember this now. So for years I had a mohawk and my pops would cut the sides for me. Well, we got tired of the mess, so he decided to very tightly electrically tape a nozzle for a vacuum onto the trimmers and essentially make a Floby. Hey, it worked great.
You know what? It's a vacuum and scissors. Like, it just makes sense, especially for like a dog, you know, trimming your dog.
There was no more mess, man. I mean, it just worked.
Well, let's see if I can find Brent's. Yeah, here we go. Here's Brent's Nextcloud.
This should be a fairly simple question to answer. What's new in Nextcloud? However, we'll see if I get there, and maybe you'll vote whether I answer that. The reason it's difficult is that it turns out Nextcloud can do a lot, way more than even I realized.
He sounded good on that Yeti. You know, they were just using a Yeti on the podium to capture that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it worked. Is that our pre-show? That the videos are up?
Oh, maybe. The videos are up and Chris hates it. This just in.
Yeah, that is kind of funny, yeah. That'd be good. All right, I'm going to scratch that pre-show then. I like deleting stuff. You know, it's funny at this point in the show, I love just deleting stuff out of the doc.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like one less thing.
At work, when you see like the pull requests that are just all red, it's just stuff getting deleted. So it's the best.
Oh, yeah. Here, I'll direct link to Brent's. The joke could be that we'll put a link to Brent's talk, but we're not putting a link to my intro. That's my old hair. We're not linking to my old hair. All right. My daughter Abby was so upset at me that I got a haircut. She wanted me to keep growing it out.
Is that right?
And I thought, you know, she'll be, she'll get over it, right? I got crap all weekend for it. All weekend. She just looked at me. Dad, you got your dad. I had to do it. For the bioavailability of my relationship with the wife, I had to do it. And I'm also going to go where it's like summer.
Yeah. You want to look good. You want to feel light and breezy.
Don't want that hat, you know? He just took off and didn't tell us where he's going.
It's got to be a snack.
Yeah, well, he snacked before we started the stream.
That's irrelevant.
Yeah, that's a good point. When does that ever matter? That's true.
Is he maybe just trying to make good and quickly bag a moose?
Yeah. So those videos are the first videos in 3 years.
Whoa. What was the last one posted?
Introduction to ROS, the robot operating system.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, they got a lot of robot stuff. There's also a mini-fest gaming session.
Young and a lot upstairs that we were organizing last night, if you were there last night. A lot of noise, a lot of fun, but...
that my kids played with.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's any pictures in this presentation. But yeah, my kids went up there, and my youngest has been into robotics. She's in a robotics club right now herself.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that was a good one for her. That was right up her alley. That could have been the pre-show. Could have made that the pre-show, Wes.
We got to start recording already, but we can't. You know why?
Well, the Moose Hunter's AFK.
Yeah, we got no hunter. Oh.
Here he comes. Hey, Brantley.
Look
we missed
who it is.
Hey. He's smiling.
Look who the moose dragged
hi
in.
there.
Look at the moose dragged in.
So I'm here at my parents' place, right? Who are wonderful, and I'm sitting in my mother's like sewing room.
Can we get them to come
because
say
it
hi?
sounds the best.
Yeah, bring mom.
Maybe later. And so she makes me this like snack bin of like gluten-free oatmeal and chocolate chip cookies and like pre-cut, individually separated orange slices.
Oh.
And then I'm like, okay, great, thanks, Mom. Like, I gotta go. I was really just going to fill up my water and take like a super fast break. And usually when I do that on the show here, nobody notices.
Yeah, it's because you're all by yourself, so nobody stops you.
Yeah, cats. You know, you got to kiss the cats, but they don't care. And then as I'm, running down the stairs to just come back here and just continue the show, she's like, oh. I was like, oh, what? I was thinking we could hang this like large comforter in the staircase. That way it's extra quiet in the area and you'll have better sound quality and stuff. And I was like, okay, I've trained her well. Yeah, very sweet. So it took an extra minute or so, but
sounds like we should just be all doing the show from Mom's house.
Well, I think every week we should just show up here. Yeah. My father has like a beer fridge too. We can get into after the show.
If this was like pirate radio back in the day, we would all be doing this from like Brent's folks' place, and we'd be coming over and like it'd be just a routine thing. That's how it'd be going down.
I mean, it could work if we ever all end up here, which I don't know why we would, but
the moose
maybe.
Lose. It'll happen. Just given enough time. All right. Well, now that we've yacked ourselves off, what? That's not.
That's where Brent was.
Should we? You got audio over there, Brent? Can you record?
I have the means. Yes, This is the first time I do it on this setup, so we'll see if it succeeds. But I think it'll be all right.
What could go wrong?
Inputs, outputs, those kind of things.
All the bits in between.
No. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start putting it together and see what happens, because we're not getting out of here until we do a show. There's only one way out, and that's through. All right. Well, I guess let's do our records. I'm going to turn our gates off so we have that too. Okay. You ready to record, Brentley? 3, 2, 1. Record. All right. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Ooh, I even see levels.
Good.
I think we're in good shape.
We have backup Brent levels over there? Oh. Yep, we do. All right. Let's do our room cap starting now. Yep, I do hear an airplane in there, of course. And let's do our 4 count.
Do we got Mumble? I guess Mumble joined us in 4.
Yeah, we'll see. I think so. 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
Yeah, we got Mumble.
And they're not that latent. Good job.
No, Mumble's, Mumble tight.
Right there in the closet, just right next to
It is
us.
one of the lowest latency audio systems out there. It's very cool. I like that about it a lot.
Oh, yeah. How far are we in our...
Oh, yes. Good memory. 5207 starting now. And here we go. Did I turn everybody's gate back on? No. And let's get Brentley's gate back on.
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, isn't it?
Love me a good gate.
We're trying to do a show here.
No,
Just kidding.
All the silliness was last week. We are very pod serious this week. Are we good on the dock? Yeah. We're good on the dock, right?
Oh, I added a thing I wanted to mention quickly.
Okay.
LinuxFest videos, just in the...
That's the pre-show. No, we're doing that in the pre-show.
Oh, good. Great. I was busy getting cookies, so I didn't catch any of that.
That's true. That meeting did happen while you were getting cookies. So
I think he still made the right call.
Whew. Feels like I was extracting milk there from my knee. If you felt left out from all the LinuxFest excitement last week, well, the good news is the talks are already up on the LinuxFest Northwest YouTube channel.
Ooh, I think I see your face there.
Oh, don't. No. Well, you know what? Let's put a link to Brent's introduction to Nextcloud. Carl had a great talk that really explains the background with Stream and CentOS and where Apple's going. We don't need to see mine. That's my old.
I noticed Neil's talk had the most views, so I think it might be a competition now.
Let's see. Hello, friends, and welcome back to your weekly Linux talk show. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
And my name is Brent.
Hello, gentlemen. Coming up on the show this week, I admit it, we did Proxmox dirty last week. I want to try to make good this week and go into a little more detail, but first, a lot's happened in Linux land this week, so we're going to break it all down for you, then we'll round it out with some boosts, some picks, and a lot more. So let's give a big good morning to our friends at Tailscale. Yeah, Tailscale, it's a mesh VPN protected by
Wyaga.
That's right. We love it. It'll change your networking game and build a flat mesh network across all your devices, your services, your containers, your applications, your VPSs, you name it. Get it for free for 100 devices at tailscale.com/Linux Unplugged. That's tailscale.com/Linux Unplugged.
Hey, don't forget, you can put it on your Pi KVMs too.
Yeah, you can, and we have. I do have Tailscale running on the Pi KVM. And a big time-appropriate greetings to the Mumble Room. Hello, Virtual Lug.
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Howdy.
Hey, Wes, and hello, Brent.
Okay.
Hey, friends. Thank you very much for being here. It always feels right. You know, every now and then we have to do the show without the Mumble crew, and feels weird.
It almost makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, it's like driving on a spare tire.
Right.
You can do it, but you don't want to do it for very long. Okay, we have a big announcement. The Tuxies, the 2023 Tuxies forum is officially live. Thank you, everybody who sent some feedback in. You can go to it directly at tuxies.party. We'll put a link in the show notes, and we're doing something new. Wes had a big brain idea. Instead of making you email us your suggestions or things we missed, we're just going to make another Nextcloud form, and we'll have a form. It's linked at the top of the Tuxies form that you can fill out for the things we missed, and we can do honorable mentions. And the Tuxies when those come up. Those will be coming up soon, so please go to tuxies.party and vote for the best projects, the best text editor. We added some new categories based on some suggestions. Thank you, everybody. It is going to be a great Tuxies this year, I think, especially with some of those new categories. So head on over there and go vote, please. We really appreciate that. Tuxies.party.
Don't call it a delay, perhaps, but Fedora 39 has been bumped.
Oh.
I think right now, last I looked, aiming for November 7th.
Okay. All right. We thought we might be looking at Fedora 38 right now being on this episode.
39.
Oh, 39. Thank you. Yeah, we thought maybe it'd be this episode, but it happens, right?
Yeah, it was going to maybe be delayed due to a U-boot bug impacting the Pi 4. And while the Fedora devs debated delaying the entire release or just the Pi images, more bugs popped up. I think Brent must have been involved. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah, he was doing his bug testing even when he was out hunting for moose. That sounds like him.
It's just the constant sphere, you know? You got to keep it going.
He just fires it up on the machine. He finds bugs. The bugs come to him. Yeah.
It's Neil's fault because he was like, hey, Brent, you really got to run Fedora on your new machine there.
I like that idea. I think now we also have a new bug, right? So 2 new bugs. It seems like this one's a weird one. Some of the Fedora 39 RC 1.2 images sometimes have RC in their name, and they sometimes don't, which causes issues with certain programs or users or scripts and might expect the version to match during like check of some kind.
I was going to ask which way is it supposed to be, but I suppose that doesn't matter. It's
Just
the problem is that it's
keep
not
it consistent.
Yeah.
And then there's one other bug that seems like a little more serious. There's if and hopefully this never happens to you, but if you do the media check in the Fedora installer and that fails, instead of like giving you a good error or something like that, it just goes to like a blank screen and just leaves you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I can't install.
Yeah, I guess it's not working. So they figure, with those issues, now the new target date is the 7th. Now, you remember, guys, the way that it works with Fedora is they kind of have a window that they target, and they have these sort of release milestone markers in that window, and they kind of have a range to pick from. And so the 7th is the next one in that window.
And, it makes sense to troubleshoot these things. I don't think it has any real meaning in terms of the actual release. Once we get it, it looks like it'll be a good one.
It's just a matter of days difference in the grand scheme of things. And also, looking at these bugs, I feel like this list not really going to impact myself, probably most of the audience out there. You're probably safe at this point running the RC. In fact, I'd be kind of curious if anybody out there is already running like a dev version Rawhide or already running 39, boost in and give us your take on it, because our review is going to be coming up soon. And I'd like to hear what your thoughts are if you've been trying it out. I think it's probably there. We'll see.
In other news this week, Linux Mint started working on Wayland support.
Oh!
Now, many of us have wondered for quite a while what Linux Mint would do, and inevitably they would have to adapt to the Wayland-only future. So this week we got that answer.
This is really good to see, I think. I was starting to get a little worried that maybe when we saw their X versions of apps and stuff, it was kind of an indication that they were just going to ride that X train till the very end. But it seems like a pretty good sign that they're actually going to embrace the Wayland future, which we all, like you say, Wes, we all kind of have to one way or another.
You're right, though. I mean, there's a variety of currently X-based environments out there. Some of them have, smaller teams, and migrating to Wayland is probably no small effort, depending on implementation details. So.
Yeah. And, the more custom environment you build, the more custom apps you have, those are more things that you're responsible to port.
Right.
That's why I was kind of concerned it might never happen.
I found the blog quite a refreshing read if you are interested in just knowing a little bit about how cautious they are with adopting new technologies, for instance. They say the work likely won't be done until 2026 to have Wayland as the default in Linux Mint. And that is, 2 years, more than 2 years from now. So I think they take these large changes very carefully, which their users clearly really value. Now, they have been working on this Wayland support in Cinnamon, and I would imagine with the other desktops it works just fine. So Cinnamon 6.0 is planned for Linux Mint 21.3, which is this year, and will feature experimental Wayland support, so you can try it there, but it will not be the default. The default will still be the X session, but you can, from the login screen, choose the Wayland session if you'd like to play around with it and see what's featured.
I probably going to try that. Cinnamon on Wayland, it could be pretty neat once they get all the kinks worked out.
I don't use it a ton, but I sort of semi-rely on, I'm glad to have it in the back pocket because it's a very functional, easy to use, quick to get going sort of desktop that I can use without a bunch of customization. So it's like a fallback for a machine that just needs to work. It's been nice.
It seems like a safe one to recommend to friends and family that are switching from a traditional desktop OS.
Yeah.
I will say as well, if you're a lot more interested in the details, they have a public Trello board that you can dive into to see the progress on the project and how far they've come, or maybe you want to get your hands dirty. So that would be a good place to go. Otherwise, we do have some links in the show notes that'll get you started.
A public Trello board. That's interesting. I see more and more projects using Trello for that kind of stuff. I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing what they come up to. 2026, that actually seems, if you were to gauge time in LTS cycles, pretty fair. If you're gonna gauge it in 6 month cycles, it feels
round
like
up. It's almost 2024 now, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it'll be there before you know it.
But does it feel like it's years behind everyone else? Like, is that going to really put them behind for the foreseeable future?
I don't think yes, but no, right? Because I don't think it matters to their user base. I've been thinking about this, and I know I've talked to you guys privately in person about this. If you look at who's really getting decent funding in Linux and open source software, a lot of money from the users seems to be flowing to the projects that are somewhat capturing a traditional work paradigm. Couple of the best funded projects in open source, Linux Mint and Thunderbird. Right? Thunderbird gets better funding than the entire GNOME desktop.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I think about what are those two projects predominantly doing, Linux Mint is preserving a traditional workflow and work environment, and people that want that are probably very serious about that. And Thunderbird is providing a traditional way to read and manage your email, which is not in a web browser. Now, they're updating the application, but it still represents a traditional workflow to email. And I think the people that value those classic workflows, if you will, are willing to support those projects. And I think that's why you see Mint get the funding it does. Like, you look at the bottom of the October report, it looks really healthy. So I think for their user base, it's probably just at the right speed. In fact, would you be surprised to learn that in 2026, when it ships, that the majority of Linux Mint users choose to just run X? I mean, they'll probably use whatever the default is, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people just stick with X, and especially if they have a hardware workflow around NVIDIA that requires it. So I think, Brent, yes, but no.
Great answer.
Well, something else we have to look forward to, at least things going to plan, it's a special Sunday today, because perhaps right now, as we're doing the show, Linux 6.6 is being released.
Ah, that's always fun doing a show on a Linux Sunday.
I mean, it means we have to wait a little while to try it out, but okay.
Well, it must be close because Michael Larbrell over at Phoronix is already writing about Linux 6.7.
That's how you tell. Now, okay, going backwards to 6.6, as usual, tons of just like quality of life stuff, minor features, driver updates for sure. Phoronix has extensive coverage if you do want to dive into those details, which can be pretty fun.
And I mean, we're talking banger coverage, even for them. They, Michael usually goes pretty deep into these kernel releases, but this one, pages and pages of coverage.
Which means, we can't really cover all of it, but there's a couple goodies we should talk about. Podverse, one of our favorite file systems, it's seen a lot of attention the last few release cycles. But in 6.6, good old ext4 gets some love. It's mostly code cleanups and bug fixes, which that's great just on its own, let's be clear.
Yeah.
There is a particularly exciting change from an Alibaba engineer, Liu Song. It's an optimization result in something like a 34% performance improvement.
I'll take it.
Yeah, in a situation with many concurrent writes to an append write scenario, it's an important improvement, and then they demonstrated that Apache Kafka is a particularly good real-world test of this, which does a lot of that sort of append writing, and that's a 10% improvement, which, isn't 34, but I think pretty much anyone running a big Kafka cluster will take 10%.
Yeah, no kidding. Boy, a 34% improvement with concurrent writes in an append write scenario, that's kind of remarkable for a file system as established as Extended 4.
It is cool to see nice performance improvements this far along in its life cycle.
But then part of me is like, so you mean all these years I could have had it 34% faster? But I am grateful.
Okay, and not to be left out, Podverse did also see some improvements. No new features, but lots of bug fixes, refactorings, cleanups, and also a notable fix in scrub performance. There was a rewrite of the scrub back in 6.4, and the new version isn't yet as fast as the old version. It's better in a lot of ways, but it's not quite caught up. So 6.6 brings that not all the way back, but a lot closer.
I find that interesting just because for many releases in the 6 cycle, it's been Podverse improvement, faster this way, and then we snuck in a little regression there, just in the scrub scenario.
Right, yeah.
But nice to see them fixing that. XFS got some love in 6.6 as well. It has a new online repair that's just starting to land. It is using memory more efficiently while it does it, and it'll probably be landing over the next few kernel releases. There's also, with this, a new XFS release manager. Now, the previous manager left with very large shoes to fill. This individual did all the things, really took on all the roles, wore all the hats, and not exactly a model the new maintainer necessarily should replicate. And so they're looking for help for code review for XFS, bug triage, perhaps a community manager, because XFS has a community. And there's some LTS manager roles that need to be filled as well.
It's a good reminder of just all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to keep these things ticking.
Yeah, it's more than just code in the kernel.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it. But things should really kind of improve for XFS's online repair, though, over the next few cycles. So keep an eye out for that. And then there's one I thought I just wanted to note for you guys. It's not a big deal, but I think it's noteworthy. In Linux 6.6, references to the NSA for SE Linux are being removed. It's just SE Linux now, not NSA SE Linux. The patch strips out the NSA references from the SE Linux code, and there is a kconfig text that adds a quote that I thought I'd read. Kind of gives us some of the context here. It says, let me have a drink of water. This changes the NSA Linux to just SE Linux in kconfig to help text and comments. While the NSA was the original primary developer and continues to help maintain SE Linux, that's an important note, SE Linux has since long transitioned to a wide community of developers and maintainers. SE Linux has been part of the mainline Linux kernel now for nearly 20 years and has received contributions from many individuals and organizations. So look, guys, it's bigger than the NSA now, is what they're saying.
Yeah, other spooks use it too.
We'll never forget. But, I think it's probably fair. Maybe there's a brand issue there. I think, especially just when you're outside the States, it probably feels a little awkward using NSA SE Linux when you're in Switzerland or what, Berlin or whatever.
I think having to be, having been here for so long and, fairly widely deployed or outside just systems like that, makes a reasonable case.
But I'm so curious, why this year? Like, it's been 20 years. Who made that decision to finally, say something about it?
That is a fair question. Why now after 20 years? That's the true
I
question.
think we're going to have to do some research on the patch submitter.
Maybe somebody knows. An insider.
Or we may never know. Now, Linux 6.6 did bring some extra features that I think we might get excited about. So, gents, you better dust off your brass because Rust got an update in 6.6. Rust toolchain gets a version bump, which is not as big of a bump as we saw in 6.5, but it is a bump worth celebrating. Among other things, support for Rust Analyzer for out-of-tree kernel modules landed, along with improved Rust availability detection script. And there's a lot more, which we're, just scratching the surface here. So we have a bunch of links in the show notes, as always.
Yeah, it's nice to see it ticking along. There hasn't really been like that major Rust driver getting accepted yet. There's stuff in the works, like, Asahi's got Rust written drivers for the...
That's kind of, I think, the big driver why I want Rust support fully baked in is eventually I want to see these Asahi drivers upstream so then all distros can be ARM enabled on the Mac platform. And you just install any distro you want. It's just in the kernel. But you got to get this Rust support working.
Right. You got to have that working, keep it up to date, keep adding features to enable eventual Rust in the kernel.
Oh, linode.com/unplugged, y'all. Oh, go over there right now and get yourself $100 and kick the tires.
Great place to run your Rust apps.
Well, yeah. Little thing I'm doing, and it worked so well, is I have the Odroid power off in Jupes. But I still have a bunch of automated processes here at the studio that are like collecting stuff and send it to the RV. And I do that via SyncThing. And what I've done is when I need to, I spin up a Linode that runs SyncThing, and it sort of acts as an intermediary. So the studio syncs everything up to this thing on Linode, this SyncThing dedicated SyncThing box with a whole bunch of storage on it attached. And then when the Odroid came up in Jupes, comes up and it starts getting the data just blasted down from both a cloud instance and the SyncThing instance here in the studio. And so over cellular, I was pushing 85 megabits consistently to the RV once the system came back online. And Linode will just blast it as fast as, and the thing is here in the Comcast, like I have to go through relays to do SyncThing, but when I host it on Linode, it's a direct connection too, so it's faster. Anyways, love it, linode.com/unplugged.
Now, if you caught last week's episode, you may have noticed it was a bit of a party, slightly, wild, I think is how I would describe it, which was really fun for us.
To burn off. Okay, Brent.
Yeah, it was super fun, especially for us in the studio. I mean, I've been thinking about it all week, which is a good sign. But it wasn't the best format for us to get into some of the nuances of complex topics that we may have hinted at.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So the one that comes to mind for sure is Proxmox. We did it a bit of a disservice last week with our server adventures, so I feel like we have to do a redo this week.
Is this Brent just being like, Chris, explain yourself?
You did bad. Yeah. Well, it wasn't our finest moment, was it? It wasn't. We were having a little too much fun. Lesson learned there. And it just wasn't the right moment to convey like the full context around the decision to scrap Proxmox after all this, like a year of planning to use it. So a quick background, friends. come back in time with me a bit. We have 3 local servers. One is an ancient rig that's just been running like a champ forever, and then 2 newer boxes contributed by audience members. And storage and compute are kind of the top jobs for these machines, all 3 boxes. Different services and applications that are facilitating the use of that storage and compute. And we're only adding to the list constantly. Like one of the things this new box is going to do, I probably mentioned this on the show last week, can't remember a damn thing, but I probably mentioned this. We're going to download the back catalog. We're going to transcribe the entire back catalog. And one of the ways we can do that is with this. But then what if we could take that to the next level? Don't know, but what if we could? We could start training something like Meta's open source Llama 2 on our back catalog transcription. So perhaps one day there could be a Jupyter Broadcasting search engine that's powered by this box. You could go to and say, when did the guys first talk about NixOS on the podcast? Hit enter, and this chatbot would come back with an answer. Now, maybe we'll never do this, but it would be a very nice tool, even if it was just something internally for us. So these are just jobs that we're constantly adding all the time. And storage and compute were going to be the big focus with running applications and containers and some VMs. And I wanted to deploy Proxmox on this local infrastructure. I wanted to have a reliable way to manage, a medium VM load and get at least 2 different servers in this mix that we could maybe move things between.
And if you're not familiar with Proxmox, it kind of fits that bill. It's a virtualization and container management system built on top of Debian, tightly integrates KVM. It also has Linux container LXC support, can do software-defined storage. It's got complicated and advanced networking functionality all in a single platform. You've got APIs. You've got a web-based user interface to sort of easily, you can do stuff at scale with APIs or easily manage it just in the web interface. It's got a community of users. There's a lot to like about this. It uses ZFS for storage. There's a bunch of tools and stuff for backups, doing VM migrations. And best of all, unlike a lot of competitors, say like VMware stuff, you can run Proxmox for free.
Yeah. I mean, they build themselves as open source, but there's obviously commercial stuff around it and different commercial packages you can get. And there's a backup server that's separate and all of that, but good stuff. And it's come highly recommended by our audience for years. And because of the consistent high recommendation, I've basically taken that as signal. When we get something like that over and over again from the audience, it's something to pay attention to.
I mean, our audience builds a lot of really impressive stuff. And so we should take note.
And I was a Proxmox user, like in the 4.0 days. I ran some JB infrastructure on Proxmox back then. And I liked it, but I felt it was definitely time to refresh my take. I wanted us to have some real hands-on time with Proxmox, understanding that it's a really good tool and it's something we should be able to speak to. But after deploying it, and it took a while to get it deployed, but after deploying it because of the hardware, it was more complex than I expected. Did you have something you want to say?
Well, I can give my personal experience, but sorry. No, I was leaning instead of raising hand. Those two, we need new symbols for those two because they're very, very similar.
I think we put on colored hats.
When he's got the green hat on, he wants to talk. When he's got the red hat on, he's quiet.
Right?
If you want to chime in with the setup, you could just say something like, speaking to that setup process.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Chris, we did have many issues with the hardware, but we got over those thanks to Jeff and Noah. And, you and I were just watching for the most part. But once it got working, you dove just immediately into the software. And I had played with it a little bit on that 1-liter box that Alex dropped off at my place. And I could see the reaction you were having on your face, because you have quite a few facial reactions, and software frustration is maybe one of them. And I could just tell that you weren't having a good time.
Yeah, it's a lot of UI, to the point where you're going to need to learn it. You're going to need to learn Proxmox, especially if you're going to run it in production. Like any complex, useful tool, it needs training. And going through it, felt like I would probably want to use Proxmox kind of casually with some semi-important stuff for about a year before I felt comfortable enough using it in anger in production. And when things go sideways, in my experience, it's always better if it's a simpler setup. If you allow a bad analogy, I kind of think that working on Proxmox is sort of like the difference of trying to upgrade a MacBook and work on a MacBook versus a framework laptop. Right? Like one is like a DIY modular thing that you put together and you understand intimately and you can take it apart and rebuild it pretty quickly. The other is a product that meets a large market demand but is very inflexible in ways that I need it to be flexible. And, or, you know, another bad analogy, which I probably mentioned before, is it's like an old car versus a new car. You can open up the hood and you see where everything is at. In a new car, it's all sealed up. And the simplicity of a NixOS host with a few containers and a few VMs that we can manage through the Nix config makes a lot of sense when you consider that most of the systems we'll be running, especially the things we build, will either be NixOS VMs or NixOS-based containers. And so then at that point, it's kind of obvious where to go. We don't need all the tooling around Proxmox, and all of the jobs we're going to be running are going to mostly be Nix already.
Okay, Chris, but I could just see maybe the audience, even myself, just kind of thinking, oh yeah, these guys are going on about NixOS again. And hey, Chris, it's just Debian underneath. Why can't you just kind of dive in and do the flexibility from that side? What's your answer to that?
Well, it's Debian, Brent, but it's not enough Debian. It's just not quite there. Because like one of my very first experiences, I probably mentioned this too, sorry everybody, is that I had to get in and edit the grub defaults. I had to go in and SSH to the box and start editing the Debian system. And that also was my experience the last time I used Proxmox, is semi-frequently when I needed to do something, I would be dropping down to the OS and doing it in the OS. And I don't like that dichotomy where you have a GUI management system and then you're also editing the OS and the two are kind of in sync but not necessarily aware of either.
Right. And maybe it would be different too if we were deploying like a lot of Proxmox, you know, so we had an occasion to be messing with it regularly.
We had centralized storage. Mm-hmm. We were taking advantage of their backup services. Or if one of us was like a professional using Proxmox in production at their day job, sure, and we knew Proxmox in and out. So for me, it's like, well, if you're just going to always be dropping down to Debian, why not just use Debian? And if you're just going to be dropping into Nix all the time, why not just use Nix? The other thing, and it's not as big of a deal, but we are often kind of pushing the edge on what is new and what you want to run. And a lot of times it requires just the right libraries to use the video stuff or whatever it might be. And so an example of this is some folks are struggling with like LXC containers to get things like stable diffusion running in Proxmox. And you can find on the Proxmox support forums people that are tweaking the underlying system trying to get stable diffusion to work in a Proxmox container. That kind of thing would be happening to us every couple of months. And so we need something that's a little more flexible and customizable for us. But what I'm picturing now is essentially two Nix hosts with their configurations probably stored on GitHub so we can do our change management and tracking that way. Maybe we even deploy that way with a GitHub action or something. And we manage the VMs through the Nix config. I thought about installing something like Cockpit, but it's a little wonky on Nix. I honestly don't think we need it. If I need to mess around with the VMs in a GUI, I could just use Virt Manager.
Yeah, true.
So I think the long-term solution is really simple base OS. As you and I were wrapping up after the show, we were in no state to be working on the system, and we were in a very suggestive state of mind. And Neil's hanging out at the studio with us. He walks up and says, well, hey, why don't you, instead of putting ZFS on there, why don't you put Bcache on there? Why don't you put Bcache?
How dare he?
Now, we actually gave it a thought. What did we end up? I actually, again, cannot remember. What did we do? I know, so we have two storage pools. We have a fast one that's all 10,000 RPM drives, and we have a slower one, which is 7,200 RPMs, but larger. So we got two pools of storage. When I did Proxmox, I just set them both up as ZFS. I don't think that's how it is now, though, is it?
No, it still is.
Okay.
If I'm recalling correctly, you know, and these things, it was
fuzzy. It's fuzzy.
A long week.
Yeah.
We had two pools set up as you described, but there hadn't been any data sets created yet.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's still left in that configuration. We were sort of debating what all the file systems we wanted on this box, but we did get Bcache installed.
Yes.
So it is available. Should we want one or both of those to try it out?
Yeah, it's really just a matter of time until we put Bcache in production. I think the real question is, do we do it before or after it's officially released? All right, now I'm leaning on before.
Yeah, I'm leaning on before as well.
We can't be
Got my vote.
hipsters if we wait till after.
We used that file system before it was unstable. It is kind of it's a reset, and this is what we do sometimes. We just throw things out. We try something and we throw it out even after like a year of planning, and I think it's a good thing. We didn't stick to it just because we were tempted after all the work it took to get it running on there. We were tempted just to stick with it. But since we could Nixify it in place, we figured, why not? And this isn't a takeaway from anybody running Proxmox in production, because if I were, using it for years, if I had multiple systems I wanted to run Proxmox on, I think I would still be very happy with it. It was just simply more than I needed. Often I find that with the GUI stuff, because if something really hits the fan, I want to be able to just SSH in and know that all the config changes I'm making there are consistent. And I can recover it, and what I can see there in the disk layout, that I can just see it all and fix it. Or, put another chroot and put another system in place and get the data back online. Like, I just want that flexibility for our critical systems.
And hey, it'll still be a fun experiment. We'll see how we go, and maybe, do we regret it in a year?
Stay tuned and find out. Collide.com/unplugged. Go over to KOLIDE.com/unplugged. Go give her the story now. Collide.com/unplugged.
Yeah,
a
why
little
not?
demo over there. A little demo
Test
over
out,
there.
see if your web browser still works.
Find out. Only one way. Collide.com/unplugged. We thank them for their support.
We got a ton of feedback again this week. Thank you for everyone. Now, Archie left us a little bit of feedback. Archie did also show up to LinuxFest Northwest, and I got a little story about that. I met him, again, for the very first time.
Again for the first time, or really for the first time?
Well, let me rephrase that. I met him again.
Yeah.
And the very first thing he mentioned to me, he came up, "Hey, Brent, hey, how's it going?" "Oh, good. Hey, you got a bunch of sats tied up in my Bitcoin node here because
we got to
remember your old
your channel. Oh, he had a channel open.
Yeah, remember your old node that you shut down?
We were supposed to
5-6
fix
months
that
ago?
this week, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
We totally forgot.
So that was feedback I got in person from Archie, quite directly, and I gotta say, Archie, I'm so sorry. We totally forgot, but we'll get on that soon. And if we don't, please tell us again. But he did also write in and said, "Hey, if Mitch does not get to this in time, there are a couple other ways to help with Podverse. And those, of course, are located at podverse.fm/contribute. And P.S. Archie is a party member."
Yes, thank you, Archie. Podverse is the GPL podcasting 2.0 app that's available on Android, iOS, and the web. And it does have a tight little team behind it, which Archie is now part of, also known as SUCD in our Matrix chat. But I think the really exciting thing here is Mitch, who Archie referred to, is the main developer, and he has gone on a 3-month sabbatical from his full-time job to focus 100% on Podverse. Now, the other great thing about Podverse is because it is open source, our community and the Podverse team worked to make the web version of their player actually embeddable. So if you go to the Jupiter Broadcasting community-built website, the player that's embedded there is the Podverse player, thanks to the open source nature.
So cool.
And it's a great player. It's a great team. It's been around for a long time, and it's picking up some momentum. And so this would be a great time to step up and support them a little bit.
I just love how easy to share it is, too. It's
Yeah.
great. You're just trying to, someone maybe they don't listen to a lot of podcasts. You're trying to send them one they might enjoy. It's a great little web UI and very linkable.
Well, what do you send somebody where you're going to give them a web link?
Right.
Like you're on.
Am I sending them to the iTunes live? What?
Right. It's great for
I
web
used to-
linking.
I used it just this week to link someone to a specific chapter because it also supports that, which I really
Nice.
appreciate.
Yeah, that is a nice feature too. That is very good. So yes, if you can. Also, by the way, if you boost, a portion of your boost will go to support the Podverse dev team as well. So that's another way you can support. We'll have a link to that in the show notes.
Hey, also, can someone schedule some boosts maybe once a month just to remind us to move those sats off of that node? That would really be good for all of us, I think. So thank you.
And now it is time for Le Boost.
And Deleted comes in with our Spaceballs boost, who is also our baller 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sats.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life.
No, wait, Chris. I think this might be like a Super Spaceballs boost because it has an extra 6 at the end there.
What do you see extra? What are you talking about? Extra 6? Is there an extra 6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Spaceballs thing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's kind of like super.
But maybe it's not a.
boosty.
Maybe it's what would that be then?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like a ludicrous Spaceballs, ludicrous boost or something.
Well, it needs a different sound then.
Do you? Do you have that ludicrous clip? I totally do. That's the one. Yeah, you nailed it.
All right, here. Let me do this again. Clean. All right. What did you call it? A baller Spaceballs boost? Is that what you called it?
I think it should be ludicrous.
Okay, yeah. And our first boost comes from @deleted. He is our baller boost with a ludicrous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sats.
Yeah. Baller alert, better work for them dollars. Yeah. Baller alert, better work for them dollars.
And he writes, I'm catching up on the last few episodes. Great work on the Windows challenge. I'd like to propose another. Oh, boy.
Here we go.
That's why he's coming in with the big sats. Here we go. Okay, he says,
he gets the program, though, at least.
The 32-bit challenge, using hardware that does not support 64 bits. Could you survive a week or even a single day? I'm imagining something with an Athlon or Pentium 4 in it. This idea came out of the remarks that 4 gigs of RAM isn't enough for modern systems anymore. It occurred to me that we used to run everything on far less. My first Linux install was a 166 megahertz Pentium with an MMX, of course. Got to have the MMX.
Yeah.
And 16 megabytes of RAM. Wow.
A real baller.
That is, I think the question there is, would we, how would we get our hands on 32-bit hardware?
I don't know if I have any. That's the problem.
Well, wasn't the first Pi 32-bit?
Feels like that's a bit of a cheat, but I was wondering too, like, could we somehow just, at software, force the computer into 32-bit, but then you're not getting the disadvantage of the old crappy hardware that's also part of the thing.
Could do it with a VM, like an old OS constrained environment, tiny RAM.
Yeah, but then you're missing the whole beauty of having this ancient computer in front of you with like a CRT and such.
I'm now imagining, is there a market for like a cloud provider, but it's all just Pentium 4 boxes?
I know I must have a 32-bit system somewhere. I do have no, that's an Optron box. I've got like a 13-year-old system here, but it's an Optron or something, whatever the AMD server CPUs were back then.
It just occurred to me that some listeners would have never used a 32-bit computer, which is a shame in one way, but also really.
That's an interesting point. They have no idea. They're 64-bit privilege. Okay, I like this idea. I think it needs a little refinement. If you've got an idea on maybe how we get our hands on the hardware, maybe eBay, if you got a link or something, boost in. And I think over the next week or two, I'd be down for trying this. Yeah. I'd like to tighten that up.
Sneak boosts in with 50,000 sats. First time booster with a Tuxie's suggestion, best chat platform. And I'd like to put Simple X up as a contender. Been using that with the family since you guys mentioned it. And, Element should be on there too. Maybe others could chime in with suggestions.
This Sneak, first of all, thank you for taking the time to set up and boost in. I know that is the mountain you have to climb once it's all set up. It's really simple, but that setup process can take a bit. I sat down, so I took the kids out on an early trick-or-treating event, like 2 hours away from the studio. And then came back to the studio after that, sat down, brought up the forum, brought up Slack, brought up Helipad, boom, top boost right there with Sneak. And I'm like, that is a great idea. We do need a best chat platform category, so I added that to the Tuxies and polled the Element room, the Matrix room, for some ideas, and talked to Wes and Brendan, got their ideas, and put them all in there. So thank you, Sneak. That is now a new category for the Tuxies.
We almost need a new category sound, I feel like.
Right? Oh, boy.
Wheel of Fortune or something?
Wait, what? Like a new category has been revealed? You're thinking like a... And now we have a new category. How was that?
Double Jeopardy.
That was perfect. Exactly what I had playing in my mind. Chris, you nailed it. Anonymous podcast guru user came in with 36,000 Satoshis. Appreciate the show. Been listening for years. I work in the space industry, and I'm in the process of putting ZFS on Linux onto a satellite that will launch next year into low Earth orbit. Pretty neat stuff. I share your enthusiasm for ZFS and also Flatpak.
That is incredible. How about that, boys?
That's great.
Linux and ZFS in space. I hate to be greedy, anonymous podcast guru user, but I'd love to know what distro. Like, if you want absolute bulletproof, do you go Ubuntu since they kind of have the most simple ZFS integration?
I could see this both ways. Maybe you go Debian because it's super stable and predictable, but maybe you want everything extremely predictable, so maybe you do go NixOS or something.
I guess like you're not doing like dist upgrade on your satellite.
Or are you? Like, what if something goes wrong? You got to plan for these things.
I bet they're rolling their own kernel, right?
I was going to say, come on, it's Arch, right? It's got to be Arch.
Does anything go into space that doesn't have its own kernel? Do we know of any space Linux device that is using a stock kernel? I don't know of one. I guess that's the fun, right? Everybody gets to like roll their own.
We should add too, maybe just because, we weren't trying to throw shade on Proxmox, nor ZFS. Like,
no.
We didn't, we got NixOS all configured with ZFS support. We're not taking that out of the config.
Right. It's so solid.
Yeah. We're big fans of a lot of file systems.
It's going to, in fact, I have really solid confidence in ZFS on Nix because it's not like some sort of DKMS shenanigans or anything like that. So I think it's going to be really solid. But I'd love to know if you can share with us, Anonymous, that's just a little fascinating detail about the distro. Bonk comes in with 30,123 sats using the Podverse. Says, hey guys, thanks for getting me into NixOS recently. I'm running on a 2015 MacBook Pro.
Neat.
Nice.
I had to reinstall it after the 18th generation because it wouldn't boot anymore on any generation, but we'll see what happens this time.
Whoa, that's crazy.
He says, thanks for keeping me entertained on my long road trips. Hey, we are a road tripper's best friend, Bonk. Thank you for the boost.
Thanks for listening. Good luck with your install.
Yeah, let us know how that goes. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone in the audience running it on a 2015 MacBook Pro, so you are our boots on the ground reporter.
Listener Jeff boosts in with 22,222 sats.
Things are looking up for old McDuck.
I thought for sure my giant schnoz was messing with that headset mic. This boost is for Drew's amazing work cleaning up the insanity that was episode 533. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. It wasn't your schnoz. It was the cord rubbing on your shoulder, which I admit was driving me crazy the whole episode, but it wasn't your fault. It happened. It's just because it has a cord and we didn't like pin it. Should have thought of that one. I don't really like the sound of that headset mic either. Noah manages to really make it sound better, but I think it's just not a great dynamic range to begin with. So there's just not a lot to do there. Thank you for the boost, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thought Criminal came in with 20,022 Satoshis. Hey, how about a Chris Name Mangle of the Year Tuxie category? We can give out an award for that.
I love this idea. If, again, we had like a way to say, hey, where's all the times, what are all the times Chris has mispronounced something? If you could ask something that, and then we could produce that list, I would have made that category.
I don't know, maybe.
I feel like if you're voting for this too, you have to provide an audio clip that we can, make a year in review.
That
would be really lovely.
Take a Podverse timecode link.
Yeah, that is true. If you got a few suggestions, I could always slip it in there at the end and everybody go vote again. I really think it's a good one. I'll own it. High Five Connoisseur's back with 5,000 sats from the podcast index. Good to see you, Connoisseur. It says, I'm responding to cross shows on how to install Nextcloud. It's been a popular topic. I'm using the all-in-one image. I struggled to get the ancillary services up and running and connected like Collabra. I do want to point out that Nextcloud is just like any other service. We should be treating it like cattle and trying to install it in ways to see what works for you. I think I lost the thread there. We should be treating it... I do want to point out that Nextcloud is just like any other service. We should be treating it like cattle and trying all the ways to install it to see what works for you at that specific time. It's just my 2 cents. And thanks to the JB crew for all the entertainment and thought-provoking conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. You should definitely do like what works with your setup. What are you comfortable administrating? Maybe the all-in-one works because it's sort of the default way and you don't care about any of the particulars and you just want the blessed configuration. Or maybe you've already got some containers running and you want to understand what bits are actually going on in Nextcloud.
I mean, like if Brent would have come to us, how many years ago, Brent? Have you been running the
5,
Snap?
I think.
5?
6, 5.
Snap version of Nextcloud? If you would have come to us 5 years ago and said, guys, should I run the Snap version of Nextcloud? We would have said no. And it's been working great
Yet
for
here
him.
we are, and it works great. Yeah.
So
I know listener Jeff has tried a few different ways and had, I don't know, issues. He's having, anyways. But everyone's different, I think is really my point.
Oh, we really never. Now I'm realizing we never sat down and had that Nextcloud session either. There's so many things we never did.
Yeah, we did say that Wes would solve all his problems. Sorry,
so
Jeff.
hard. He's a precious resource, But Connoisseur, thank you for your thoughts and thank you for the boost. Nice to hear from you again.
Tier Boosin with 2,500 sats. Looking forward to seeing y'all at Texas Linux Fest 2024. Keep up the good work. And what base OS would y'all recommend for a Nix noob?
You could really start with any distro you're even somewhat familiar with and then put Nix on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do with Nix, maybe. Like, are you just trying to check it out as a package manager? Are you trying to build some stuff with it? But yeah, I mean, it runs great on pretty much any regular old Linux distro. Easy to install, easy to get rid of, and you have access to a huge array of packages.
Also very, very...
I feel like, Wes, you might have a recommendation on how to install it, because I know the default method of installing kind of scours some files a little bit everywhere. Do you have any better recommendation?
No, I mean, the default installer's fine, or the determinate installer works great as well. That one's nice because it will, by default, enable flakes. They've also got some nice recipes set up if you want to install it inside a container or on WSL or that kind of thing. But
probably for a very new person, the determinate installer is probably a little more approachable.
Yep.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, just a quick curl pipe to SH away.
Yeah, I mean, you're not doing all the plumbing yourself, but it gets you going with the package manager in the Nix language pretty quick.
Yeah, there is also Nix Portable if you don't even want to install it. There are a few caveats there because it's kind of a funny little environment to make it portable and make it work. So if you're getting serious about learning, that might not be the best just because there's additional constraints that you'll run into, but it is an easy way to try it out if you don't want to go the full install route.
I believe the Texas Linux Fest call for papers are open. Carl, I'm not sure if your mic's hot, but I think that's the case, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Oh, boy. Looking forward to this.
I think open until December 16th.
Okay. So December 16th to get your paper in. We're going to be there.
Yeah.
Hopefully all three of us is the plan.
I'm in.
Brent doesn't know, obviously, because it's in the future.
Yeah, I don't know how to plan more than about 6.5 days ahead.
I don't either, but I just have resolve. I have resolve.
You know, the thing that works for me best is typically someone else plans it for me, and then I just have to show up because I feel so bad for disappointing people. So I think that's the route we should go.
So I think
just buy tickets.
It's official right now. Yeah, Brent's going to be there at Texas Linux Fest.
Yeah,
we all
I'll be
should
there.
expect that.
I'll see you there.
If you were a meat eater, it would be a foregone conclusion since it's across from Terry Black's. But yeah, very much.
How's their coleslaw?
Very good. Everything they make is good. So
beans.
And if you were going to meat cheat for a day, you literally probably couldn't meat cheat anywhere else better. I mean, it changed my whole perspective on meat and barbecue. So, yeah,
April 12th and 13th.
There you go. Thank you. I was hoping we'd pull that out. Oh yeah.
We hear again this week from the open source accountant. +1, 3,000 Satoshis this week. +1 for the fall mini fest and spring full Linux fests. I'll be there in the spring. That was my very first fest this year, but not my last. Loved meeting you guys.
Yeah, okay. I'm already getting excited about that too. Mm-hmm. It's going to be pretty close. Texas Linux Fest.
Are you going to be there, Chris?
Linux Fest.
Should we book ahead of time? Yeah.
The only thing is I'm already committed to Texas Linux Fest. So if they
we better not have any date collisions, right? I'll just say, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be there. Yeah. Brent's going to be
Wes?
there.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm in. Wes just drives up. Of course he's going to be there, right? Even if his car broke down, we'd come down and pick him up and bring him out.
Right. I'll hitchhike if I have to.
Yeah, it's still happening. Did I have a special... Did we have a special Rust one? Let's do the... okay, let's do this. And ladies and gentlemen, he's back, Mr. Rusta Castaversa, with 15,554 sats.
There's a mispronunciation right there.
There you go. That was across a few boosts, and he says, thanks for the great conversation with Frank. It makes me hopeful for the future. You know what makes me hopeful for the future? Your boost, Rusta. Thank you very much.
Pegda boosts in with 3,333 sats. It's like a +1 duck. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that.
So, about the Tuxies. I saw that you had both as an app and as a server OS. In my opinion, Home Assistant should have that too. It had a fantastic gear, and with their add-ons, it's a great OS to deploy apps on. And jumping to the apps, apart from Home Assistant, the app I'd like to see on the list too is Image. I haven't actually deployed it yet, but it's up there on the top of my list. Recently, they added external libraries, which was kind of the missing puzzle piece for me.
I might be over a year now on my image use.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Screw Google Photos. So this PegDot was a great recommendation. So Home Assistant is really two components if you're running the whole HAS suite. It's the core OS, which is obviously is Linux-based, using containers to run the Home Assistant container and then add-ons that you install, which also come down as containers. And so I've done what Mr. Dodd here has recommended, is I've put Home Assistant OS in the best self-hosting category of the year, and I've put the Home Assistant app in its appropriate category. So I've separated those two things out, so you'll see Home Assistant OS and Home Assistant in different categories. This is why. And then his last idea there about Image, boom, also added to the list because it is absolutely fantastic, and it was a shame it wasn't on there. But it really entered into its own this year. It was an early alpha last year. So
yep.
I think it's great.
I think I might be deploying it. We'll see. I've played with it, but because it was kind of alpha, I was like, well, I'll wait a bit.
Yeah. Well, and you know what really, the thing that gave me peace of mind is I just run it over Tailscale. So my phone connects to Tailscale, and all the backups are taking place over Tailscale. And what Image does that some of the others don't offer, even though I think they're really great, like Prism, is it gives you a really nice local app to view the photos. So that's the thing that Google Photos also does, is an app to view the photos. So like you want to look at a photo or show somebody a photo.
It's right there. It's easy. Yeah.
Image does that. And when you open it up, it also shows you the backup status with a nice little icon. And they're working on smart features for face detection and generating memories and stuff like that.
How Was Right came in with 2,100 sats from Podverse. I've always avoided Proxmox just based on my own intuition. I've never heard anything bad about it until this show, which is quite interesting. I'm glad I'm on Team NixOS for now, though. Declarative containers are nice in NixOS land, which I want to explore more. LXC and Docker have always got the job done for me in the past.
Here's the takeaway I want people to have. When you invest in a skill set, it enables you to build on top of that and create things that can do the jobs and tasks that you need in a way that you understand and can reproduce and rebuild. And so the reason why we keep going on about, we'll do this with Nix or that with Nix, is because after years of you guys kicking our butt to check out Nix, I mean, it took us forever.
Yeah, we were a bit slow on that one. Sorry.
When we finally picked it up, what we did is all three of us invested in a skill set that is paying dividends now. And I think that's why you hear us bringing it up in these different scenarios. It's a lot like when you first learn Linux. You learn all these things you can start solving and doing with Linux that were maybe expensive or even impossible with proprietary operating systems. And so you just start finding all these solutions. I imagine it's much like if you get a 3D printer. So that's why you hear us talking about it like this. And I think Hal was right, has it dialed in. It's like you invest in this idea, or for you RHEL sysadmins out there, you're probably well-versed in just using KVM on the command line and connecting with Virt Manager. It's kind of like that platform's approach. And so that's just the approach you take for deploying VMs. And I think that's something now that I appreciate a little bit more that I didn't at the beginning of this process. And I think, Hal, you put it into words. So thank you very much for the support.
Are you saying Hal was indeed right?
Yeah. Hal was in fact right. Space Demo? Space De Niro? What is this one?
Space Nerd Mo.
How do you do that? How do I look at that and I get Space Dino?
I like that almost as much. I don't know.
It's a row of ducks from Space Dino using the index. Longtime listener, first time booster. Hello, sir. Thank you for taking the time to get that set up. We really appreciate that. Although I was not able to attend the talks at LinuxFest Northwest, I was able to get to the meetup at Stone's Throw Brewery, and I met some amazing people. I had a great time, and I'm looking forward to the next gathering.
Oh, great. I'm glad you got to participate at least a little bit.
Yeah, I always feel really crappy if somebody traveled or took the time or it's their first and I didn't get a chance to say hi to them, because it's a real tricky balance of moving around the room but spending time talking to people. Depending on where the venue is, I kind of just adapt. We often kind of get a good rhythm. The three of us get a good rhythm going eventually, but you got to get your.
I usually try to look over at you guys, and if I've seen like, oh, Chris is in a deep conversation with someone, then I'll kind of, for the next 15 minutes, take the task of being the one that
circulates
quite quickly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I get caught up in a great conversation, and I hope you guys are doing the same thing. We haven't really talked about this.
Daverlin boosts in with 2,000 sats.
Coming in hot with the boost.
And actually do note that they are coming in hot with a low boost. Debian doesn't have flavors. That's an Ubuntu thing, because the corporate tax is them only supporting Genome.
Thank you.
Proxmox is not a Debian flavor. It's a Debian base with an Ubuntu kernel with corporate choices on top. I mean, Lexi in an OCI world? Also, regarding the server and the 3 days wasted with prepping it, server hardware is corporate tax. Why else would they restrict boot options?
Strategy taxes all over the place.
Used SFFs is the way to go. Cheaper, less power, less corporate tax. Scale horizontally instead. Shout out to Brent for using hardware longer than it should be and buying used. You are not alone.
Shout out to Brent indeed. Did we say Debian has flavors? Oh boy.
The things we got wrong last week.
It's embarrassing. We're not doing that again.
I mean, it was very fun. I kind of want to do it again.
I mean, how strong were those ciders? What was in those ciders? I just don't know.
There was also a couple long days beforehand.
Oh my gosh. And no sleep and just go.
Soltros boosted in with 5,000 sats. Hey guys, I thought I'd share my NixOS configuration, so we'll include a link in the show notes. Tell me what you think. I'd love for the other community members to share theirs as well.
I went through this already because as they clearly picked up, I love going through people's Nix configs, and you can tell a lot. And I stole a couple things from this config, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I see some VirtualBox drivers being loaded, right?
I decided I'd never tried VirtualBox on Nix.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't used it for a while, and I thought that's exactly what I did is I grabbed his VirtualBox config in here and popped that on my machine, did a build. Now I got VirtualBox working great. The other thing that I see in your config here is you basically got like every single desktop environment, and you just comment out the ones you're not using and uncomment the one you want. So you must be a desktop environment hopper. You got Genome in here, Cinnamon, Pantheon, Deepin, XFCE4, Budgie, Mate, with Plasma as the current active one. I thought that was kind of interesting. You got Pipewire all set up. You're a Bitwarden user. I noticed that as well. Still using X11 because you're also an NVIDIA user, I can tell, with this config. There's a lot you can pull out of this, isn't it? Interesting. Mm-hmm. You can see just all kinds of stuff, their user information, their networking settings, and how they're doing Podman as well.
And if you want that, it's so easy to copy.
Yeah.
You know how typically we get postcode boosts into the show and we get to learn about our listeners a little bit more? This is like your digital postcode.
Yeah, Soltros, I hope you start a trend here. If people want to post their config, make sure it's safe to do. It should be. The most will give away is really your username and host name is probably private. And unless you have some static stuff in there like IP. But anyways, put it up on GitHub and then boost it in with a link. I'd love to go through people's Nix configs. Mm-hmm. And I got some nice value out of that, Soltros. Really, really do appreciate that. Lol Saboteur comes in with a little bit of Rodux. He says, I recommend checking out silverbullet.md for the garage PC and notes. I don't know how I hadn't seen this before.
Yeah, it looks nice. I'm curious.
Well, first of all, if you go to silverbullet.md, the entire web page is rendered using the app, and it's all like text that you can highlight and copy it around. It is a little markdown note-taking application that runs in the browser that looks really, really nice. If I wasn't already sipping the Obsidian juice, Silverbullet looks pretty cool, and you can self-host it. You can run it in a Docker container. I spent a minute with it after Saboteur boosted this in. Really like Silverbullet. We'll put a link in the show notes so people can try it.
VT52 boosts in with 6,667 sats. And links us to some juicy news about the Nix package's supply chain security project. Sounds like by the end of the year, I don't know if that's this year or next year, but Coming up, Nix packages vulnerability tracker, TPM2 back to UEFI secure boot. That could be slick on Nix. Full source bootstrap chain for standard environment, making it possible to go from nothing to a Nix build environment without using any tools that can't be themselves built from source. Neat. Thank you for the link. I'm going to have to go through this after the show.
That is really cool. So you can make it possible to go from nothing to a full Nix environment only using tools that were built from source themselves. Wow. That's neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to like about Nix, and we kind of gush on it probably too much already. We don't really talk about the sort of reproducibility aspect of it, but it's neat to see that marching onward.
All right, rounding us out, T Morgan 497 comes in with 4,269 sats. Thank you. Using Fountain. And they are emptying out the Fountain wall because they're trying out Podverse for a while. He has some observations and feedback for the Fountain team. He'd like the full JB show notes and the links in there, which I will contact them about and try to get that figured out because it does seem to be specific to Fountain.
Yeah, I wonder if they're just choosing to display a different feed element for that.
I think, and I don't think it's just our show, but I'm not sure. I don't genuinely need our show notes because I have the doc.
Right.
So I never really check the show notes often unless we're publishing, and then I'm kind of done. Don't need them. I don't even think often to go to the public page. I just go to our internal docs. But I will try to follow up on that. He said he writes that he also had some issues with Fountain recalling when he switched between apps where he was playing back, and I think that could be a low memory situation. But I think you'll like Podverse. I hop around a bit. I have been using Fountain and Podverse and Cast-O-Matic and Podfans and on. And right now, I'm testing the Fountain 1.0 beta, or really RC. So that's where I'm at. Let me know what you think, Morgan.
Sam Squanch comes in with 10,000 sats. Shout out from Victoria, BC. Sounds like a few other people out there are using Wise cams. I flashed mine with RTSP firmware and using Frigate, which works great. However, I cannot figure out how to deny the cams access to the cloud. I block all the traffic they seem to use, and still, somehow, they keep working through the app. Any experience with this?
So there's the Wise cams. You can also install WiseCam hacks firmware, which gives you even more control. That might be something you want to look into. Just got to make sure your devices are supported. I have successfully been able to block this as far as, I guess I should double check. I haven't checked in a long time, at the DNS level. I don't block it at the firewall. I block it at the DNS level, and I just kind of confuse it that way. Then to get access to the Wise cams, I use the Wise Docker Bridge. I think it's called. It's Wise Docker Bridge. Maybe double check me on that, Wes. And that uses Wise's local kind of RTMP proprietary stream to pull it in to the bridge and then just convert it to plain old RTMP, RTSP, HLS.
Docker-Wise-Bridge.
That's it. And so I have then pretty much just kept since I've started using that, I've kept the WiseCam stock. If you're in the States, they're like $25 a cam with pretty good optics, decent feature set, but they do require a cloud app and a cloud account. And ultimately, they're Wi-Fi cameras. And Wi-Fi cameras are sort of hit and miss in their quality. Depends on your Wi-Fi implementation. If I remember, when I get Jupes back, which will be after I've traveled, so I probably won't remember. But at some point, I would like to try to see if the Wise app works again. It's been a minute since I've checked that. If anybody else has experience, please do boost in and let us know your experience with that. Also, a thank you to everybody who streams sats as they listen. Our dashboard and Helipad now shows that in real time. So there's little tricks we've had to pull before, but now I just have it up there on the screen as I'm working, and it's so great to see. So thank you everybody who just turns on that streaming sats and just streams along as they listen. We had 24 boosters this week, and we stacked 356,338 sats. Thank you everybody who supported the show. Honestly, I think we need to do better, and I appreciate the value we did get, but we tried harder this week and are in a better state of mind, and we appreciate the support of this production. You can support us with cash, your Fiat Fund coupons, if you'd like to go to unpluggedcore.com or jupiter.party. Those are membership options. They also give you access to special exclusive member features like the bootleg version of the show. It's like twice the show.
Sometimes more.
And if you want to, just support each production with a boost, you can do that with a new podcast app at podcastapps.com. Fountain's real close to that 1.0. Podverse is going through that sprint. There's so many good things going on over there. Or keep your app. Just get Alby, getalby.com. Top that off using anything on the Lightning Network or indirectly just in the app. Just boom, top it off, get some sats. Then head over to the podcast index. You find Unplugged, you boost in from their webpage. Boom! There's other sites too. Fountain FM, you can boost in more and more now. It's boostable from the web. Heck, even the Podverse player on our webpage. You can do it. You just need Alby at getalby.com. Thank you, everybody who supports each individual production. This is a value for value show, and we always want our audience to be the biggest customer. I was having some fun with Kmon this week. Think of kind of like HTOP, but just for what the kernel is doing. It's a Linux kernel manager and activity monitor, and it has ncurses-like UI that you run on the command line, and it'll give you basic info about your kernel. It's got a really cool search where you can look for a particular module and then get all the information about that module, its file system location, how to load it, how to unload it,
what the license is.
Yeah, the author, the description, the device IDs it's talking to. It's such a cool tool. It's called Kmon. And guess what? It's written in Rust.
I thought you were going to say it's packaged in Nix.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Even better then.
But, it's a double whammy. It's a double whammy. It's a great little app. I'm going to basically install it all the time now. I love to see what's going on.
I love, Chris, how in our show notes now you've included the command to run it in Nix temporarily. That's really helpful for when I need to test something. Oh, you didn't do this.
It was Wes. Wes added that in there. Oh, that's a great idea because we all can just copy that and we can just paste it and try it. That is
currently downloading.
Oh, great! It's in Arch too, so you don't really have an excuse, audience member. You got to try it.
I gave it a quick go. I'm like, no, I'm installing this permanently. It was really great. Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening. Before we let you go, though, I do want to remind you, please go vote in the Tuxies. We want to get as much representation as possible, so tuxies.party for that. And also, just a little programming note. Couple of things coming up next week. Number one, I will be live from Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. So my first out-of-country live show. We'll see how that goes.
Excited for this.
I'm assuming I'm going to have
Yeah, we should probably do some scheming on that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I have any tips for you. Maybe time zones? I'm not sure.
Cover the room in pillows. Yeah.
That works really well.
Time zones is going to be hard because next Sunday we fall back. Daylight savings ends on November 5th.
Man, but not everybody does, right?
Nope. It's a show day, and El Salvador does not observe daylight savings, as far as I can tell. So that means, I think, when it is noon here in Seattle, the go time for you guys, I think that means it's going to be something like 2 p.m. for me. Which means
just your perfect starting to get sleepy time.
I know. I'm going to have more prep time, but I'm also going to be getting sleepy. So we'll see. But just keep the time math in mind if you want to come try to witness live my first remote out-of-country show.
You better be trying some tasty food and reporting back.
Oh, I will. Papooses.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.
Indeed. Why not make it a Linux Tuesday on a Sunday? Join us Sundays at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget about that daylight saving time change. And if you want more show, our LUP lug gets together on Mumble every Sunday. You get a live low latency feed right from the mixer. You get absolutely everything, even the bits that you probably don't want. And then the members, they get the full bootleg version with basically twice the content.
Raw, unfiltered Brent.
Who doesn't want that? Those Canadians, they can really curse. But it's so pleasant when they do. If I also want to know if you're going to run Cinnamon 6 when that lands with Wayland support. If you're a Cinnamon user, are you going to try it? Or have you reached your desktop nirvana already? Let us know. Boost in. And links to everything we talked about today, how to contact us, the Mumble Room info, the Matrix chat info, how to subscribe to our feed, all of it is at linuxunplugged.com. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Unplugged program. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday, as in Sunday.
Poof, magic.
All right, I'll stop. Thank you, Drew. We appreciate you, sir.
I was thinking, for you guys over there, it must feel kind of lonely in studio. You don't have half of LinuxFest over there with you.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's quiet for sure. Yeah.
It must be cooler as well, right?
Somehow it doesn't, like, the time math, my brain doesn't figure it out. Like, it doesn't feel like that was all just last week.
No, it doesn't.
But I don't really know when it feels like it was. It just kind of stands alone.
Because this feels normal.
Right.
So
this is riding the bike.
Yeah, this is like just, and because we do this for so long, so regularly, this is the way it always feels. So it's I totally feel the same way. I do. Although it makes it so special too. Then when people are here, it's pretty great. We were rowdy because my microphone mount got loosened, and so I'm in here doing the reads before the show, and this whole thing just sort of starts collapsing on me. So I'm doing the read and I'm like, KOLIDE.com. Like I'm just going down. I'm just slowly till like I'm down to the table as the microphone's collapsing.
Podcast calisthenics.
And the reason why I didn't want to stop is because like you got to get like screwdrivers out and like tighten this stuff up, and that's going to make a bunch of noise, right? So I was like, yeah, I thought.
And then you lose your groove, right? You're in the pocket there.
Oh, poor Drew. Oh gosh.
Does that mean we need like a mic stand sponsor?
Yeah, we do. No, I tightened it up. I tightened it up afterwards, but that was my sign that we were obviously getting rowdy in here. Like I was probably grabbing the microphone and like pulling and ripping it around.
Yep.
Last week I used your old chair, the old chair that you used to sit on. I used that and I stacked the old Thaleo box on top of that and used that as like a standing desk. And it made me realize your audio is so much cleaner now that the chair doesn't squeak every time you like kind of, have just want to move slightly.
We had a chair for a while that would pop when you'd move. And I think people thought it was like, people passing gas. That was always good. I like that. Yeah, Dragon, it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. All right, I'm going to end the titles. Is it end? Show end?
Show is the command.
Every single week.
End is the sub command. Think of show as like sister.
I got it. I guess I couldn't remember the sub command.
Wes, you're so generous because every week you try to very carefully
slowly walk him through
expose the truth to Chris here.
It's going to be great when I have Alzheimer's or dementia or something. We're still doing the shows. Wes will just be walking.
Well, we can start the shows over because you won't remember we did it before.
Redo the hits. All right. Not enough Debian. Not so Proxmox. Proxmox equals worst Debian. NixOS has something for you to update. The Moose Hunter. The Moose is loose.
Oh, come on.
I wish the Moose
Look
was the
at what the
nickname.
Moose dragged in.
Like
That's
we just started calling
funny.
Debian the Moose or something.
I'm tempted by not enough Debian or not so Proxmox. Not enough Debian was a line in the show.
There's a great one here, actually, from Axiom. We nixed Proxmox. Which kind of says, like, we got rid of it, but also we nixified it.
Yeah.
It's kind of clever. It's getting my vote.
All right. So these Red Bulls don't make you hungry? You don't get, like...
No, not really.
It's so weird. I get...
Yeah, you get real...
super hungry.
I
think it triggers an insulin response. I think what it does is it basically triggers an insulin response for me. So that it because the sweetener in it, I think triggers like some sort of insulin release, which then lowers the blood sugar, which then causes this feeling of crazy hungriness.
I did eat like a little granola type bar on the way up right before I got here.
Yeah, maybe. Doesn't seem to matter for me. I could usually have a big breakfast, and then if like half hour later I drink a Red Bull, 45 minutes to an hour after that I'm starving. So it's sugar free.
I gotta like attach a hamburger to the side of the Red Bull when I bring it.
Yeah, here you go. I'm stuck.
Is Jeff still with us there on the Mumble?
Yes, hello.
There you are. Hey, how'd your trip go? Because I was tripping at the same time. I didn't actually check in. Did you have any snow?
Oh, no, not at all. It was a smooth drive the whole way.
Oh, good.
I made it south about an hour quicker than I made it north.
Wow. Yeah, you had the tailwind or something?
I guess. I don't know. Doing the speed limit the whole way, but just maybe less traffic. I don't know.
It's that new transmission.
Hit that Zen.
Downhill? Speed, whether you're going uphill or downhill.
That's how south works, Brent.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I was trying to speed, but when you're going downhill, it tends to happen every once in a while by accident, of course.
I blame gravity.
Jeff, do you have a favorite portion of that drive?
The part where he gets home.
Yeah,
or to the studio.
Right, the destination. Just past Grants Pass, I think, is really nice, and going through the Shasta Mountains is also really nice. So it's kind of when you're getting, it's about 4 hours from me, so it's a real nice the journey's just begun. At the same time, this is beautiful, and then on the way home, it's I'm close to home. Nice. So it kind of matches both those. But yeah, I think that's a good spot.
I remember when we were driving south for JPL, to be in Jupes with you, Chris, to be in Jupes and have you beside me, and we're navigating, you're teaching me about transmissions going up and down the hills, and then to see Shasta in the foreground just kind of growing and growing and growing as we get closer and closer. That was really a good experience.
Yeah, Shasta's a pretty one.
I also tend to get to about Shasta when the sun rises, when I'm heading north. So that's kind of a nice, it's on the east of the freeway, so it's kind of pretty.
It took me a moment to figure that out. You must have left super early, right?
3:15.
Dude knows how to do it.
Wow.
And then from JB, I think also 3 a.m. Yeah.
That's how you get your show titles.
When you do that, do you wake up all night checking the watch and clock, seeing if it's time, or do you just sleep until the alarm goes off?
Oh God, I don't sleep. Yeah.
Anytime I need to do something in the morning.
Funny? It's like your inner alarm won't stop going off.
Like for Jupes, I knew I was going to get up around 5:30 a.m. or one of us is going to get up. And I set an alarm. And then I proceeded to wake up every 45 minutes and check the time.
Hey, at least you know you won't miss it. Except if you get so exhausted from not sleeping that you sleep through your alarm.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes.
This is making me realize, Jeff and I have a similar drive. I mean, his is slightly longer to get to the studio. But we have take a completely polar opposite approach to that drive.
Well, and also the routes couldn't be more different, right?
That's true.
You're going through vast expanses of nothing. I just came from Eastern Washington. You could fit all of our cities on the West Coast into the vast open areas of Eastern Washington and still have room left over. It's you drive for 2 hours and you don't even go past a single building. It's like
I love it.
You're like Wyoming. It's crazy. It's Washington State. And so you're driving through that, plus your Canuck Wilderness, and you're crossing borders, right? Where Jeff's doing the I-5 grind, which is a special kind of drive. It's he's good at it. I would end up getting tickets all the time.
Chris, I more meant our approach to how to tackle the drive is very different. Jeff wakes up at 3 a.m. and he's probably packed everything the night before, right, Jeff?
Yep, that's right.
right. And
that's why we got so much shit done.
Brent packs when he gets here.
Yeah, I'm hey, I probably should get there before dark. So maybe I'll pack at 11 a.m. and oh wait, my car needs an oil change, so maybe I'll do that first. And yeah, I can learn a thing or two from you.
I wanted to get home before the sun came down, so my eyes don't get too tired. And to do that, I figured I got to leave by 4 a.m. and I just happened to be awake, so I left at 3.
There's something to that too. Sure, you're still starting out when it's dark, but then the light's coming at least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the sun tends to wake me up.
Yep.
And
Same.
The evenings are a lot harsher for my eyes.
Yep.
The evening sun is.
You've been driving all day.
Headlights.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same.
For me, it's all the mooses and deer and stuff.
It's not that we don't plan. There's a lot of planning, but we also Hidea and I have a good sense of how long it takes to get somewhere in the RV, and we have a really simple formula. You take the miles and you just divide by 55. And that's basically how long it'll take you to get there because, we do about 58, 60, but you stop. And so if it's a 200-mile drive, you 200 divided by 55. And that's how long it'll take you to get there. And so using just that rough math, we try to generally aim before sunset, if we can, get there. And this last drive that we did to get to the shop, we had a more specific window where we needed to get over the pass before 3 p.m. because snow was coming. And I don't want to drive my home through the snow. I've done it. Can do it. It's actually not so bad, but on a pass, it's not ideal because you're braking a lot and stuff. So we did get over just in time. As we got to the top, it was starting to it was hail at that point. So it was transitioning. But it was one of those things kind of, Brent, that you run into. Started up the RV and realized that it had been freezing out the night before and that it's been 3 months or 2 months since we'd driven, and the tires are going to need air. And all the tires were down about 4 or 5 psi. So as we were about to roll down the driveway, Dee and I are, crawling around, hooking up the air, filling the tires up. Then I get in there and I realize, oh, Jeff, I don't know what happened, because you know how bad the wiring is in that dash. My backup camera, which is on all the time, just so I have a camera behind the rig, and then it's on specifically when you're backing up. No signal anymore.
So you're just blind.
We didn't touch anything. We breathed on the wiring. But, Jeff, do you remember, like, the guys, like, they must have cut into they, like, wired the old, and they used those pinch connectors or something, like maybe a wire fell out, or I don't know. So now I'm driving with no backup camera.
Well, you mentioned one of the cameras just hadn't worked in forever. Yeah. You never really dug into it.
Yeah, the passenger.
That's not the backup camera?
No, that was the passenger side camera.
Oh, wow.
And now the backup camera doesn't work. And that's really that 40-foot long rig, and to have no eyes on your back end. Oh, now Hadia chased, and so we had the walkies, and so she was my back end spotter, but not great. So I got to open that up. I open it up before we take off because I want to see if I can fix it. We look at it, and it's like there was a stock stereo system in there that died on us that we got replaced, and so an on-location tech came out, and he just kind of like chopped the old wires and then just sort of spliced in the feeds into a new wiring harness, bypassing the old wiring harness, and then wired in the old wires and hooked those up. And something
patch job.
Yeah, sucks. So I'm sitting there, so I was like doing the air, trying to fix the dash cam, looking at the clock, like we got to get out of here because the snow's coming, right? Trying to time it all just right, but we managed. It was tight, but we managed. But I still don't know why I don't have a camera.
Yeah.
Hey,
when could I steal some of your time?
Yeah, we could totally find some time this week, or maybe later today. Or...
Yeah, you let me know, and I'll figure it out on my end.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
Sweet.
That poor Nextcloud instance.
So Chris and I may have traded your time.
That's fine.
Without you knowing.
Did we?
Sorry about that. Oh. Well, he got the server running, and we said that your prize is a little bit of Wes. Credits,
did we? I see. Well, there you go, Wes.
Let's do it.
Trading you like a commodity.
It should be pretty easy for you. I'm gonna ditch my old Nextcloud instance and focus on this new instance that I'm working on. If we can get this new one working the way we kind of spoke about with Nginx and stuff, then I will just migrate that to the other PC and go with that. It's just a couple things I'm trying to figure out.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
What are you gonna run it on there, Jeff?
Your machine.
On my main server.
Oh, I was hoping you might mention the one that maybe you brought home with you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's running Nix. Yeah.
You're the Bonobo?
Yes. Yeah. The Bonix 7 started right up. Cleaned her up really well. Repasted her.
Can't believe it started right up.
Yeah, it was running hot.
I wonder if
it needed to die. I wonder if I just need to let the whole thing die for a bit and then try to power it up or something. But
maybe. I mean,
good. I'm glad it wasn't a big hassle.
At 50%, like CPU utilization, it was hitting 90 Celsius, so that could have been a part of it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was running hot. But after new thermal paste and thermal pads and all that good stuff, it's chilling at like 46 now.
Nice. Good.
That's great.
But yeah, threw Nix on there, looked at those examples you guys sent me and got that working out, kind of understand it now, and got Nextcloud going in Docker fine enough. But with the Nginx stuff, the config.php is just not there inside Docker or inside the Nextcloud config folder. And that's supposed to define where everything goes, and it's just not there.
Yeah, it's in the container, I think. I think you have to enter the container, if I recall.
Yeah, you're still not there.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Jeff.
What's up?
When you showed up, you were like, you guys in Nix, like, making jokes about our configs and stuff. And the first day you get home, you boot up this like wonderful Linux machine, and you throw Nix on there. So what changed? How did we rub off on you in a way that made you more curious?
Well, I've tried it before. I have had the curiosity before. It's interesting. I just couldn't figure it out. I didn't understand like how to get applications. I didn't understand how the config thing works. I still don't really fully understand how to get applications. You guys mentioned temporarily installing an app. I have no idea how to do that. But after finally kind of seeing it and being able to just, I add my apps here in the config file and I just do the switch thing and it kind of worked. But primarily, I'm kind of looking at it as a server side thing. If I can get Nextcloud on here and make it rock solid with a simple setup that I understand, that's my goal. I don't know. It may break and I may go back to something else, but I want simplicity.
Well, Chris, I think we're rubbing off on him because he said simple install that I understand, and he's running Nix, a complete, OS that he is brand new to. So I think he's doing it.
Understand,
he's doing it the JV way.
Yeah, it'll take time. It will take time, but it'll stick. It's like I didn't mention this in the show because it sounds like I'm making fun of, but it's not. I had a realization when chatting with Noah. It's like because Noah's pretty proficient in the Red Hat ecosystem and CentOS. But he's rolling some services for customers using some VMs backed by ZFS storage. And for those systems, he's running Ubuntu. And I was like, oh, why are you doing that? And he's like, well, because the ZFS support's baked in and we want it really solid. And it was at that moment where I was like, oh, right, like you have to pick distros for that kind of thing. When you're in a non-Nix world, like you got to pick entire distros based on like something like their ZFS support, where in Nix it's like you just enable it and it's as solid as being built in, and you've got ZFS support. Like you could essentially enable it in any distro, but when you're talking about like production grade, you could rely on it for services you're reselling to a customer. In that world of Linux server world, you end up going with Ubuntu LTS. But in the Nix world, you don't have to change anything. You just add it to your config, and you've got built-in solid ZFS
what
support.
If you want to run snaps?
You could.
I mean, and that's huge too, right? Like that's why I've been thinking about Nix for specifically the server environment. Either a separate server because I want a couple different pieces of hardware running different things now, and even for my main server, I might throw it on there at some point as well. For my desktop and laptop, it's going to be Arch. I can break it.
I could see that. I could really see that. When I was using Arch on WSL, I was like, God, it's so nice. This Pac-Man's great, and AUR is great, and it's so straightforward.
It's another version of simplicity, right?
Yep, it's it's another type of simplicity.
About it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's actually a really solid setup.
Totally.
I wonder if there would be a case where the Nix packages have something that the AUR doesn't.
Probably, and probably vice versa quite a bit.
Because you could also just install Nix as well on Arch, just in case there's one or two tools that you really need that aren't.
It's probably in the Arch repo, right? Isn't it? It's probably in there.
Probably is, but then out of nowhere, some kind of DKMS thing's going to break because the kernel updates too
Is that
fast
some blasphemous thing that I just suggested?
Sounds fun, actually, to me. Sounds fun. Then I might as well put Brew for Linux on there while you're at it too, right? So
I should probably play.
You know what I noticed this episode that I hadn't clued into, and no one, you guys didn't tell me. I think I say ZFS and you guys don't.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
but you didn't tell me I was one of those.
Well, it's not your fault.
It took me this long to figure it out.
We accept you. You're one of us too.
Yeah, we don't. We try not to draw attention to it. If you know what I mean.
You know what it is. So like you're part of the club. Doesn't matter how you pronounce it.
That's true. You know how when it comes to us and pronunciations, we're not exactly the pronunciation.
Genome. Yeah.
We're not the pronunciation police. There's things I like about ZFS.
Zed's dead, baby.
I run ZFS on my Raspberry Pi.
Sean Connery's coming out.
That dude loved ZFS.
He does.
Sean Connery loves ZFS.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good, Jeff. That's pretty good.
Wow.
That was pretty good.
Oh, we can make a soundboard slot for you.
Oh, guys, you know what I just remembered? I got not one, but two coders tomorrow. doing a double coder to cover for the El Salvador trip. And I finally got my first night of sleep. My first real night of sleep in probably more than a week. Because, after the LinuxFest stuff, we were traveling, and I was waking up constantly. And then when we got back, I didn't sleep that night for whatever reason. It's the weirdest thing that happens sometimes. After I've been sleep exhausted, then I go to bed and I don't sleep. Like, what kind of wildness is that? So I got a good solid night of sleep last night. So that's good. So if I get another good solid night of sleep, I should be good for coder. 2 coders. I should have it.
You got this.
The wife's making meatloaf for us right now, too, to give us a little...
That's that delicious
energy.
smell I'm sensing.
She made a little barbecue glaze for us. Yeah, it's going to be pretty good. All right. Well, now that I'm talking about food, I think that means it's probably time to wrap it up. That's usually the sign, isn't it?
That's usually the sign.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes. Mumble Room, thanks for hanging out with us today. It's good chatting with you.
What's a pleasure.
Always fun.
Always, always. I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday and enjoy it. I don't know. Treat yourself well.
Yeah. We will try. We will try.
Snack.
Good.
Take a good nap.
All right. Goodbye, guys. See you next time. See you from El Salvador.
See you.
Bye. Safe travel.
Bye.
Nice chat. Bye.
And, of course, thank you, everybody watching live. And especially thank you to our members. We really appreciate you. We hope you enjoy this packaged up version of the show in the feed for you so that way you can enjoy it almost as soon as it's possible. Basically, the moment it's done encoding and we have the show notes finished, we hit that publish button. It's also one of the fastest ways. Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
Told you. Do like I told you. Because everything is home cooked. Look out now. Here we go. Watch it. 1, 2, 3, 4.